We are back. And not only are we back, but we are absolutely amazingly back. Because I am fresh off of a 2 week trip to Thailand, which was my first ever real experience with Asia and the culture there. And every day felt like an adventure. Everything and everyone was just so new and unexplored. It really brought a lot of joy to me because I could wake up every day and be like, where am I going today? What am I going to see? What flavors am I going to taste? What smells am I going to experience? It was just a true adventure. And yeah, it gave me a lot of the things that I needed. And I had high intensity days of like going around the city and partying and doing that sort of stuff, but also calm and thoughtful days, like on the beach, taking some sun combined with evening walks, some good conversation. It was a real blast, I'll tell you that. And of course, I also spent a great deal of time with myself and making sure that my needs were met and that my mind, body, and soul were aligned for the new year. And yeah, I also reflected a lot on the year that I had. And of course, I know this best out of everyone else on this planet. But wow, absolutely wow. I'm so grateful for all that I have, but extremely proud of all that I have created. Like 2022 for me was surviving. 2023 has been thriving. And 2024, I don't know what it's going to be yet. We'll see when the clock ticks to 2025. But I'm going to put my absolute all and do my absolute best at making this a banger year. So happy new year, everyone. And now that 2024 is here, 2023 has become something of the past. And with that in mind, I thought I would smoothly transition over to today's episode, which will be about the past. I will, of course, be including another personal example from my own life, along with my own thoughts and understandings of the past and sort of my own definition that I've developed over the years. And talking about different ways one can have a relationship to the past. And in this episode, I'll actually try something new as well, which is storytelling. So be ready for that. It's gonna be a good one. So whether you're sitting, standing, running, or laying on your couch, thank you for being here and happy listening. Alrighty, so the past for me can be a great source for a lot of different emotions, ideas, thoughts, memories, and knowledge. The past can make you cry, but it can also make you smile. It can help you make a smart decision, or it can misguide you into making a stupid decision. And sometimes all you want to do is think about the past. The people you were with, the weather, the locations, the food. You just want to reminisce and just take it all in and enjoy. And there are other times where you do all that you can to avoid thinking about it. You don't want to think about those certain people and what they did, or things you saw or heard or experienced physically or mentally. You just don't want to think about it, so you avoid it. And for me, the past and life itself have a lot in common. And in fact, for me, the past is life, just a little bit further away from you than the present moment. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say that it's 8 p.m., you're at home, and you're watching a movie. And the ending of the movie is very, very sad, and eventually makes you cry a little bit. Now the time is 11 p.m., which is 3 hours, if you're not good at math. And you're laying in bed, getting ready for sleep, when suddenly something from the movie reminds you of something similar that happened in your life in the past around 7 years ago. And after a short while, you start crying again. Now, you see, even though the time between the two crying sessions was 3 hours, the reason you started crying, the time between that was 7 years. The first crying session was a reaction to something happening in the moment. However, the second example, the crying happened because of something that was from 7 years ago. So what I meant to illustrate with that example is that, even though the past is behind us, and oftentimes things that are bothering us are many, many years away, it appears in our mind and body the same way that something from the present does. Because you cried at the movie that you were watching right now, in the moment. But you also cried because of something that happened 7 years ago. Even though the time difference is 7 years, the thing you are doing and the emotions you are feeling are very similar, let's say. They're both in the sad category. And the past, it makes us feel certain emotions the same way the present does, which is what I've just illustrated. And of course, you can throw the future into the conversation as well, but I feel like the future is not really that similar to life as the past is, or not even close, in my opinion. Because you can really either be excited for the future or be scared of it. While the past, which you can analyze, feel, revisit, relearn, form new thoughts, gain new perspectives on people and systems and society and whatever it may be, there's a wider range of feelings and thoughts that the past can produce in comparison to the future. So we will leave the future out of the conversation. For now, I would like to direct the conversation towards my definition and or understanding of the past, because I haven't heard anyone really talk about this, so I'd like to share it with you. You see, rather than something that is simply behind me, time-wise, I see the past as a thing, or even as some living organism, as if it was another person. And someone that we all have a relationship with, the same way we have a relationship with other people, like our friends and family. Like, it almost seems as once we visit our past and go to certain places, we give that organism life. Like the past starts living, showing us things, talking to us, making us feel certain ways, the same exact way that your friend can do those things. But, or I guess exactly like our friends, it also seems to be dependent on our energy and attention in order to exist. Since without us and our constant visitation back to the past, it would slowly exit the mind of everyone, and eventually it would not exist at all. But the past is also selfish. It steals from the present, and it steals from you. Instead of letting your body feel emotions created by what is currently around you, the past drags you back and forces you to feel what the past wants you to feel. Now, let's say you're sitting in a restaurant or a nice cocktail bar, whatever you're into. You're with your friends, having some good conversation and some laughs. On your way to the toilet, your mood slightly changes and you can feel yourself sinking. You're thinking about something that is not giving you the same fuzzy and warm feeling you were having back there with your friends, I can tell you that. And after the toilet, you go and sit back, but it's not the same, is it? You stare at the walls, at the floor, at your drink, and it's like someone dragged, that warm, fuzzy feeling out of you. You're no longer feeling like you felt before. It's like someone took something from you. And you look at your drink once again, and you have a sip, and your friend asks, "Hey man, did you see a ghost or something? You seem off. You seem like something happened. What's wrong? Tell us." "Oh no, I'm good, man. No, it's fine, it's fine." Ever experienced that before? I think you have. I have. I'll tell you that right now. I have. A lot of times I have. But I'll tell you what I started doing in those scenarios. Because after it happened a few times, I was like, what is really going on here? Like, can I counteract this in some way? Can I change this? Or is it just going to randomly come, steal my feelings and steal my mood and just, leave me there? So if for a few minutes you were to act as crazy as I am and treat the past as a literal person, a person that uses you as his house and its job is to get your attention. Now, don't get me wrong. There are many times where listening to the past and letting your attention go to something from it is very useful. I'm not saying that it's all around bad. Just what I like to do when the bad visits happen, like our little toilet accident earlier. Now, to really hit home with my example here, let's go back to the toilet incident. For the past to be a literal person, you basically have to imagine that there is actually someone in the toilet with you. You have to force that person to say the things you are thinking out loud. That, to start with, will already give you a broader perspective on what is really going on here, and it will help you keep things lighter and less serious. Like, let's say you think back to the time where something unfortunate happened with your brother. If you force that memory to become a literal person and stand in front of you in the toilet and tell you, oh, you remember that time when that thing happened to your brother? Be like, yeah, I remember, but now's not the time, bro. We can do this at home. And then you just leave it in the toilet. You don't take it with you. You just leave it there. You tell him no, thank you. And instead of getting all dark and sad, you just experience and observe what the other person is trying to tell you. And the other person being the past, of course. And of course, you can do it exactly however you want. But for me personally, if it has something to do with emotions or feelings that are not really relevant to the people I am currently with anyway, I pull out either the notes or the voice notes app and record what I'm currently experiencing in a very short format way so that I can visit it again later, like when I'm home by myself, for example. And sometimes this is a huge game changer, as later on you will realize that you were just being tricked into feeling a certain way, and other times it is something you actually have to give some time and thought to. But writing it down and giving yourself that extra space will help you better understand which one of the two it is. So to summarize, the past is a person. Like other people, he has made me smile and he has made me cry. He can make me laugh, he can make me angry or confused. He can also motivate me, but I have to be careful because he can also make me doubt myself. And for the past 2 years, I've realized that whichever way I decide to live my life from the present day will directly be responsible for a big part of the relationship I have with the past. As if I live from now to 2025, that'll be a year of my life that the past now has. And he will probably come back with something from this year. And I have to be ready for that. And I have to make sure that I act, think, and feel in a certain way which makes the past want my attention for good reasons and not reasons that are destructive for me. Like, let's say in 1.5 years, the past comes back and says, oh, you remember in March 2024 when you did that one thing that was so cool? You're like, oh yeah, it was cool. Yeah, you're right, it was cool. Thank you, man. Instead of, remember in April 2024 when you stopped working out? You're such a loser. You don't want those visits. You definitely don't want those visits. You want the good visits. So make sure you live a good life. Because I need everyone on my team, especially the ones living in my house. Okay. Now, that was about me and my understanding of the past. I do not know how popular this way of thinking is, but considering the fact that everyone I have told this to and tried explaining it to acts like they do not know me anymore, says enough. I'll keep this idea and talk a little bit what I have been able to observe when it comes to the different relations we as humans can have towards the past. Things and systems I have been able to observe both around me, but most importantly within myself, after I started seeing everything through this lens of the past being a person rather than an expired moment. Now, talking about myself is always going to be the best approach, as I am unable to understand other people as deeply as I understand myself. So I believe we should start with the one that has been easiest for me to see. Both in myself, but this is something I've seen a lot in other people, particularly in nightclubs or just places that involve alcohol and numbing down. And the first one is scared or running from the past. And remember, these will be different relations you can have to the past. And still, for this episode, I want you to treat the past as a person. Just to keep with me here. I know it's crazy, but just try it. So scared or running from the past. Because some people just do not have the tools or knowledge to be able to deal with really complicated, highly emotional, and long-lasting traumatic experiences from, for example, their childhood or maybe 2-3 years ago. Now, how traumatic the experience is varies a lot from life to life and person to person. However, one thing that I have seen one too many times is people who surrender to the trauma and do all that they can to bury it, to not think, not feel, not be present, and for the love of God, to not go back. They are done. They want to live life and move on, but they can't. Jumping up and down on the dance floor with 7 beers in your system isn't going to give you that peace of mind you're looking for. Trust me, I've tried that a few times and it really doesn't work. Walking away from the past, or even eventually running from the past when it gets too intense, is exactly the same as showing up to a street fight with your back facing the enemy. The act of running and hiding from your past is exactly that. You are literally fighting a person and turning your back to him. How do you expect to win? Like how? I don't know how. Maybe you know, but I don't think you do. Because you know from experience, the thoughts and feelings are not just going to go away. They might go away from your mind at the moment, but they're still going to be in your subconscious, waiting for you, waiting to strike again. You know you have to face them and see what is actually there for you to be able to move on. However, you still show up to the street fight with your back turned to the enemy, ready to submit, ready to lose, all the while telling yourself that this is the only way. Oh, it was in the past, I can't do anything, I'm just depressed and sad and blah, 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 whatever. All that loser talk. And I would say just try something different. Turn around, drop whatever you were trying before and whoever you were trying it with, because those are just people that were just as unfortunate as you. And this is something I've experienced a lot myself, where you're never given the proper guidance, coupled with some serious trauma. Those people are also trying to numb themselves. They're also trying to jump up and down with 7 beers, and hopefully they will forget what their parents said to them or what their friend did to them or whatever it may be. And you join them because you, like them, don't have the guidance to know that, okay, I can't be fighting this enemy with my back to them my whole life. I have to turn around, put down the beer, and actually, try. So go all the way. Instead of numb, feel it all. Think about it all, and finally, act. Make a change. And if you still want to jump up and down, go do it in a forest and see how you feel then. Find some nice trees, find some comfortable grass, and just jump up and down there. You'll definitely feel better than you will in the nightclub. Moving on, next one, living in the past, or living with the past. So instead of being in the moment with your friends, your family, or yourself, you always hang around with the past. And the past still being a person, by the way. You ever experienced a time where someone said something to you, and for around 3 to 5 days, that person or what that person said kept popping back into your mind? It has definitely happened to me. So now, let me ask you a question. When I said what I just said, you most likely recalled something someone said to you that you could not get out of your head. But my question is, the thing that you recalled, was it positive or negative? Because this can be really interesting for you. As I did not mention positive or negative myself, I did not use the words. So whatever popped into your head is entirely from yourself and your relationship with the past. And all I will say is this. The past works off your attention as his currency. Like I said, that's his job. You give positive memories a lot of attention and time, focus will be directed there. You give negative memories a lot of attention and time, the same thing will happen. Your focus will be directed there. So try this next time something positive happens. Try and think about it for at least 3 times for the next week. And just feel yourself afterwards. See how you feel. And, I don't know, just see how you feel, I guess. And yeah, this was my little intro to living in the past. But I feel like this one is too common. So I doubt it needs much explanation. My only advice as a person who has done their fair share of living in the past or with the past, make sure you're keeping track of who you spend time with. And yes, I'm still referring to the past as a person, like I'm completely crazy. I know. But seriously, the past uses attention and time as currency. So no surprise that he wants you all for himself. Luckily, there's a lot of what you are, or you are made up of a lot more than just the past and this past person. There's a lot to you. And all of those things inside of you are competing for time and attention. So that is why I advise, be careful who you spend time with. The past wants you. That sounded maybe a little bit too romantic, but you get what I mean. Next one, denial of the past. And you can think of this as being in the same room as your best friend and your mother asking you, what do you guys want for dinner? And you say, what do you mean, what do we want for dinner? I'm alone. And your friend's like, no, I'm here. I'm also here. I want potatoes. And you're like, no, I can't hear anyone. I can't see anyone. That is denial of the past. And you know what this makes me think of? Flat earthers. You can clearly see that the earth is round. However, you still choose to go with another alternative and say, nope, it's flat. And the earth being round is just someone else lying. Same with the past, man. He's standing right in front of you. You clearly saw and heard what happened, but you still choose to believe something else and act like he isn't there. Act like someone has lied to you. But who? Who lied to you? You lied to yourself. And for me personally, denial has always been a defense mechanism. I do not really see it as anything else. And I haven't really used it for anything else, and I don't really know if it is used for anything else than defense. If you could choose from a menu of choices or mindsets, why would you ever, out of all the choices you have, choose denial? Like willingly, if you actually had a menu in front of you and like, okay, you can choose now, why would you pick denial? I cannot accept that some people would on purpose like to be in a false version of reality. Thus leading me to believe that that denial only happens when we feel so under attack that we have to do something to lessen the intensity of what is happening. And that's fine. Everyone does that. No problem with that. But if you are denying the past, you have to eventually remove the denial and see what is behind the curtain. But start small, because that's what I did. You can start from the fact that whatever you are in denial of obviously carries some weight and was quite the experience for you. So take your time, don't be too hard on yourself, and give yourself the needed resources to figure out what is going on between you and the past. Don't deny him, don't act like he doesn't exist, listen to him. Because intense feelings and thoughts in a real world from a real you creates problems that are much worse than saying hello to the past. I don't know if that made sense, but what I was saying is if you deny something that really happened to you and is affecting you, that will create consequences that are a lot worse than the consequences that come from when you say hello to the past and see what's behind the curtain. That's what I meant. Yeah. Let's move on. Learning from the past. Using that person as your teacher. And this one is quite the classic, I think. You know, you've heard the "don't let history repeat itself," or whatever the quote is. Yeah, super classic. Or "don't make the same mistakes that I did, son." I feel like that is also super classic. At least I'm fairly certain that I've heard that many, many times before. But my question is, why not? why can I not make the mistakes that I want to make? Why not make the same mistakes, and why not let history repeat itself? Because the outcome would never be the same anyway. We all think, feel, perceive, and understand things very differently. So every single one of us would gain unique lessons and knowledge from these mistakes. Now, I'm not talking about putting your hand on the stove, because the outcome of that is pretty simple. You're going to burn your hand. I'm talking about more bold and risky choices. And I actually had a thought recently, a very theoretical thought, but I still liked it a lot, so I'm going to share it. Is that every single mistake you're going to make this year has to some degree already been made by other humans. Like, we've existed for too long, and there are too many of us for your mistake to be the first ever. Now, of course, not down to the same detail, but the same elements. You know, whether it has to do with career, relationships, location, food, pain, transport, money, or whatever it is, someone has already made a stupid purchase, someone said something bad about someone's hair and made them upset, someone stayed in their job for too long and didn't have enough time or energy to go after their dreams. You know, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Even though you made the same mistakes as everyone else, like elementally, it doesn't mean that the outcome will be the same. So just go for it, man. Just shoot. And yeah, no one has made like one-on-one copies of the mistakes that you're going to make, but whatever mistakes you make, live with them and learn from them. And of course, going back to the classic things I said, like, don't let history repeat itself. Yes, we need to learn from history and do differently than the other ones that have made the mistakes before us. However, I believe that learning from one's own history is the best way to go about life. Because experiencing something firsthand and learning from it it's just so much richer than opening a book and reading about it. And one of the biggest utilities I have found in the past to have when it comes to mistakes is teaching me what will happen when I say or do certain things, and helping me understand what I should repeat in the future and what I should not repeat in the future. And also what I could potentially improve so that I can repeat it again. And yeah, me in the past have had a lot of sit-downs where we evaluate my performance and what I should be thinking about moving forward. Things to do and things to avoid doing. But remember, follow your heart, follow your stomach, follow your intuition. If you make mistakes, be like, fine, this is a moment of learning. I'm ready. The last one, motivated by the past. And you can literally, in this situation, you can see the past as your coach. An invisible coach that only you can see, but you can hear him. And he can make you feel certain ways, the same way a real coach can. And whether motivated is the right word or not, I'm not sure, but let me just tell you what I mean. When the past becomes the difference between action and inaction, you are motivated by the past. This can, of course, be small scale, but it can also be big scale. And I'll be talking about big scale as I believe I have very limited experience with small scale motivation. Because for me, it has always been something that starts small and it grows and grows and grows. And at the peak, it's motivating you like hell. And a perfect example I could give of this is the amount of people that doubted me when I was moving from my home country to live where I live now. And I did that move when I was 15. You know, I can still remember the teachers, all the adults, my friends, classmates, training partners, my online friends that I gamed with. Doubt from all corners. Oh, what if this happens? Oh, have you thought about that? Blah, blah, blah. It's just, all of this, like, you're not going to make it. It's not going to work out. How are you going to learn the language? You're not going to have any friends. You're moving at the wrong age. All this, whatever. It's just noise for me. No. The only thing I have to put some serious thought into is how is this going to work out? And that I will not stop until I get what the new life I have imagined for myself is. And carrying all those people that doubted me, and their doubts and their words and their sentences and their looks they gave me, with me on that plane ride as I was on my way to the new country, grew into something bigger. So big that every time I wanted to be lazy or go off track, I would be reminded that I could never become someone or let something happen that would prove them right. I had my eyes on the target, and whenever I needed a little support, I turned to the past, and he helped me out. He gave me the boost I needed. He was like, Daniel, have you forgotten what they said? I'm like, oh, no. I haven't. Sorry, I'll get back on track. Sorry. And of course, back then, I did not have this idea about the past, and I was younger, and I wasn't that reflective as I am now. But looking back, this is how it worked for me. It is as if you make a deal with him, the past. That, hey, buddy, whenever I start doing what I'm supposed to do, keep quiet. But whenever I'm supposed to, or whenever I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to, could you please remind me that I am playing for the wrong team? I need to make sure I succeed at this. No problem, bro. That's what the past told me. No problem. So, alrighty. This time, as I said in the intro, I would try to do things a little differently. Instead of only talking and reflecting about my own ideas and what has happened, I would actually like to tell you a little story. A story that, in my opinion, perfectly demonstrates how unproductive constant visitation to the past can be for the human experience. Sitting comfortably in a hotel lobby, this story suddenly arrived to me clear as day. I immediately recorded it for later use, never really imagining that I would be sharing it with the world on my own podcast. It's crazy how fast things change, huh? So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the story of Marcus. Marcus was an ambitious miner whose current life goal was to find gold and lots of it. For that, he needed to find a cave. Knowing that there were lots out there, just not when or where he would meet his first. So with no other choice, Marcus set out on a path to find his first cave, so that he could finally start mining the gold he had dreamt of for so long. It is a beautiful Tuesday, and the sun rises on yet another day. Marcus had already searched for weeks with no luck. Each week passed also decreased Marcus's desire to acquire gold. However, he was not ready to give up, and him not giving up served him quite well. Because while he was having his lunch on a little hill, he suddenly saw a dark patch, an opening on the side of another hill. This was his chance. And as it turns out, it was exactly what Marcus had hoped for. It was a cave, and not only a cave, but a cave with gold inside. Marcus could feel his heartbeat rise and his body filled with excitement as he entered the cave. This was it. He finally made it. And even though he had been waiting for this day for a long time, Marcus didn't do what you would maybe expect him to do. Most of his time was spent looking around and admiring the beauty of what he had found. He then only spends about an hour or two in the cave, mines and gathers with him a little bit of gold, and then quickly runs back to the village to show and gloat over the gold he has now found. He is then, of course, celebrated and praised by his peers, along with the rest of the people in the village. The praise and attention started to slowly turn into a bigger reward than finding the gold. It almost seemed like the admiration for his successful find was of higher value to Marcus than the actual gold, which was the resource the success of his goal was determined by. So he got distracted. The very next day, he already had expectations built up that yesterday will be repeated and that success is guaranteed. Marcus was hungry for the smiles, laughs, and proud looks of the people around him. He wouldn't accept anything else. When he finally arrived back at the cave, he was shocked. The entrance to the cave had collapsed, and there was no way to enter. Once again, he was absolutely shocked. He could not believe this had happened. This was in no way what he had expected of his long-lasting and big success. What were the people at home going to think about when he arrived back with no gold? How on earth is he going to tell the other people that there was nothing? And how is he going to get them to like him again? And most important of all, what about all the gold he was supposed to have? His disbelief and denial eventually turned to anger. This newly gained anger made him act and think in ways that were both destructive for him, but also for the people and the world around him. And since he was not able to accept his new reality and what had happened, his coming days were spent something like this. Day after day, he would go back to the same cave, hoping that it would have somehow magically uncollapsed. And he was essentially wishing for the rocks to just fly back on the hill and open the cave for him. He wanted the cave to open again so that he could get more gold. This, in his mind, was something that was owed to him. Wishful thinking is what one might call this. As changing the unchangeable events of the past is something that no man is capable of. Not even Marcus. And days turned into several months. As time passed, his bitterness grew. It grew to a point where it could no longer grow inside him. It had to find room elsewhere. And that elsewhere was the village and the home he lived in. The various establishments and people all over a period of time got to taste the bitterness of Marcus's inner poison pouring out of him. And eventually, on a soothing summer evening, when the people, along with Marcus, were sitting around a bonfire, they tried to help him. They tried to give him the antidote to his poison. Francis, who was known for being a thoughtful and intelligent member of the village, was trying to explain how Marcus was actually in a better position than he was months ago. He had started with 0 gold and now had more than 0. Maybe not as much as he would like to have at the moment, considering how much he saw in the cave. But looking at him only a few months back, all that version of Marcus wanted was to find a cave with gold inside, which he had now accomplished. So he was a step further on his journey. He had never found a cave before, but now he has. So his ability to trust himself and the ability to find a new one should be more present than it was before. That he now could do even better at the next cave, knowing that it might collapse and his opportunity could be swept up from under him any given second. The people agreed with Francis. They all wanted the best for Marcus. Everyone except for Marcus himself. The bitterness inside of him had almost found its place in the world, and it was not ready to leave Marcus and let him start again with a healthier mindset. This was nowhere near what was needed to keep his bitterness alive. He denied the help of the people, even started blaming them, that if he had just mined the gold and not come back to the village, he would have more. He blamed the people for not having more. After several nods and expressions of disapproval from the people, including Francis, Marcus just walked off and went to sit by himself. He was now at the peak of his downfall, where hope was nowhere to be found and a smile nowhere to be seen. All that dominated his mind and daily life were the pains of the past, the collapsed cave that ruined his life. He took, however, one last leap of faith. He visited his childhood through memory, gave his inner world a moment of peace from the hell he had been building all this time, and thought back at the moments when he was a child. What he would do day to day, and what sort of relationship he had to the events of the outside world compared to now. He remembered playing football for a while with the boys in the village. Not being very good, though, he took the decision to quit. Regardless of not playing football anymore, his increased athleticism guided him to take on running. He ran consistently and loved it. After a while, though, he was not as amused as he was in the start, so to make moving at high speeds even more interesting, Marcus started riding horses. He very quickly became one of the best horse riders in his village, inspiring the young and respected by the elders. Unfortunately, he eventually had to move, not due to a decision of his own, but his parents. This meant no more horse riding, as the new village was not wealthy enough to afford horses for riding, Marcus had been left with a scar on his soul. He felt like the world had betrayed him and taken away something that gave life purpose. Was this where it all went wrong? Marcus asked himself. He had been so occupied in believing that the world had betrayed him, all the while failing to realize that the truth had been with him all along, that he had been betraying himself. Ever since he stopped learning and growing from his past experiences, he was going against himself. He was rooting for the wrong team. And there it was. Realization and self-accountability. To some degree, he always knew that the collapsed cave was a random event that no one could do anything about or no one knew was going to happen. He knew that he would have gotten more gold had he stayed longer and worked harder. Yes, he knew these things deep down, but now he could accept them. He could accept the unpredictable events of the world and that they sometimes have unexpected and negative consequences on us. But that is life. He also accepted personal blame for the lack of gold and lack of effort. Marcus stood up rather quickly, now that he was equipped with a new perspective on his actions and thoughts, knowing that going to the collapsed cave every day, hoping that it would magically uncollapse, was a betrayal against himself. Furthermore, he realized that the poison he had been given himself had now started to spread out into the world. All of the blame he had put on others, including the world, had made everyone distance themselves from him. Now, the rest of the night was quiet. He laid on the grass, gazing at the stars of the sky, embracing what he had now learned. The very next day, he did his utmost best at owning up to his mistakes and apologizing to all the people he had been poisoning. Francis, the wise man, was happy that Marcus arrived at his conclusions. He was even happier, in fact, that he arrived there on his own, that his transition happened on the inside, not by force from the outside. Later that day, he took one last walk to the place that started all of this, the collapsed cave. While there were tears running down his face, he thanked the cave for teaching him this important lesson and giving him the opportunity to once more grow as a human. All Marcus could feel now was excitement, euphoria, and purpose. He had finally realized the position he was in, an improved one. One where, if he were to now meet the same opportunity he did before, the outcome would be greater. When leaving, he finally, for the first time after months, smiled for the first time, while gazing into the horizon, knowing that a bright future was waiting for him. All he had to do was take the leap. He then set out to find a new cave, which he of course eventually found. This time, he wasn't going to let the past repeat itself. As much time as humanly possible was spent down in the cave, treating every day like it was his last, never knowing when the next collapse would occur and when the door would be closed on him. Eventually, he bought a horse with the gold he had acquired. The child inside of him was smiling as he was once again riding through the wind, finding new caves with his newly made friend. Marcus and his horse, who he named Francis, have now found numerous caves, giving jobs to the unemployed villagers to move the gold, to sell the gold, and to store the gold. He enriched his people and the establishments within his village. He acquired more food, water, materials, clothes, and horses. And he was now, once again, a thriving positive force for himself and the world around him. And last I checked, Marcus was giving horse riding lessons to the children in his village. The end. You see, like Marcus, we all have caves in our past that have collapsed. And I advise you to reflect on this, to do a little bit of exploration in your inner world to find the beauty along with the ugly. This is important because the power that these broken caves hold is entirely up to us to decide. We can allow it to collapse further eventually destroying our whole world, or we can turn away and transform the energy from the collapse into excitement for whatever else waits in the vast playground of our world. Once your back is turned and your eyes, along with your attention, are removed from something, it no longer has the resources to survive. Your attention and energy is what fuels the collapsed cave and its life. Once you've learned and dealt with the pain that it provided you, you can clean the slate, turn your back, and move on. And remember, for the chance of a better future, go out and find the cave that is waiting for you. For the chance of no future, spend your time trying to change the unchangeable events of the past. Lovely little story, wasn't it? At least I think so. And I believe that this story arriving to me was not that random, as I myself have been Marcus several times in my life. I often found myself getting fooled again and again by this illusion that my input of time, energy, and thought would somehow change the circumstances of the past. I myself was trying to change the unchangeable events of the past. And, think to yourself, why do you even desire this? And where would it stop? Would you just change this one thing that is bothering you from the past? Or would you abuse the power and go back and change everything that provided you with discomfort? It's a genuine question. I myself eventually took another route, one that I deemed to be more interesting. So I ventured out into the unknown land of my subconscious and tried to dig deeper in order to find an answer to that question. What was it about this particular memory that was so bothersome for me? Why wouldn't I just forget it the same way I forgot what I saw on the bus yesterday? Because this memory had more meaning than the bus. Nothing on the bus had touched something in me on a deeper level. This memory, however, had. And out of all the times that I have done this, one thing kept being true. That it wasn't the memory itself I had a problem with. The problem came from me disliking and my judgment of the person that I was in that situation. I didn't want that version of me, that version of Daniel, to exist. So I was looking for the easy way out, to just forget or change or erase what had happened, so that there would be no evidence, nothing at all that would reveal that side of me. But like I said before, the easy way out, once I started thinking about this, never seemed as interesting as the harder, more uncertain way. I have, for the majority of my life, always longed for adventure and challenge. Of course, the complexity of these things has changed with my age, but I feel like I have something deep inside of me that just never stops moving forward. However, I'm of course far from perfect. There were times where I also took the easy way out for a short period of time, and that is completely fine. The time for answers is not defined by me, only the pursuit of them. I control my journey towards the answers, but I do not control the date or time when I get to them. I control my journey, not the time. And sometimes you find nothing, and that in itself has to be a journey, because otherwise giving up becomes all too appealing for the human mind. If you are dependent on great answers every time you take a deep dive into personal growth, you will be too disappointed too many times. So keep going no matter what happens. You deserve it, you work and earn it. Okay, so moving on from Marcus, I'd like to move on to Daniel. And again, like I did in the last episode, give you a little bit of a personal example from my own life that is sort of relevant to the topic that we are talking about. And for today's personal example, I would like to keep it short, but still make sure you get the general idea. My ex-girlfriend left me. There were different stages of what I went through after that breakup, but it didn't take me long to understand that she obviously left me for specific reasons. By now, you should already know that instead of just moving on with my life, I took a deep dive into trying to find out every single thing that was off about me. And if I was a girl, why would I leave myself? Why would I, or you get what I mean? If I was a girl, why would I leave myself the way my ex-girlfriend left me? Is what I'm trying to say. And I got some pretty great answers, to be honest. Answers that helped me become a better man for both myself, but also my loved ones, my friends, and the ladies. Now that we have the context down, let me tell you what actually happened to me from the perspective of me and the past. Because since I had so heavily leaned on our breakup for answers to what I needed to do to improve as a man, every time I made an adjustment or anytime something a bit more impactful would happen in my life, it didn't matter if it was positive or negative, that was irrelevant. But I would immediately go to a place where I would try and figure out what she would think of this. What would her opinion be? And it was kind of like a dance of, okay, she didn't accept me before, but now that I've accomplished this, would she accept me now? Is basically the mechanism that I was operating with. Wasn't that aware of it while it was happening, but eventually I figured it out. And yeah, another example would be, it would go something like this. I was thinking about quitting the sales job I had a few years back. And then immediately the past would visit me. Yes, the person. And be like, okay, bro, you can do that, of course. But have you thought about what she might think? That's pretty much what would happen. But eventually I was like, as if she was my CEO or the board of directors for the life of Daniel. Like, what is even going on here? Like, what am I thinking about? I guess I just never realized in the start of my transformation that if the foundation for my growing journey as a man was going to be our breakup, that all the major changes and decisions to me and my life would also be going through that experience again and again. And wow, I still remember the refreshing day that I got rid of this for good. I mean, bless the Lord. Some of it might still be lurking inside of me, but there is too little of it left for me to be bothered or influenced by it. So I am cleansed, ladies and gentlemen. And me in the past had a conversation. I told him that, listen, you are visiting the wrong person. The version of me that lived with the fear of the opinion of his ex-girlfriend is gone. He was still alive around 2 years ago, but now he is gone, and I have replaced him. And after that conversation, the past didn't bother me anymore with the same deal, since I wasn't there to be bothered. The version of me he was visiting was no longer there, so the visits weren't possible anymore. There was now a new version of me. And it happened so quickly that I didn't even realize. But when I was thinking back to the young man that I was, the young man that was left by that girl, I realized just how far I had truly come. And I was so euphoric. I remember sitting there and being like, wow, I cannot believe this is happening. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the end of the episode. Today, I thought I would send you off with a nice thought I had while thinking of this episode. It was around 5 weeks ago. I remember this because it was a week before my vacation. Well, that's not really relevant, is it? But I wrote it down just for you, so enjoy. Nothing is fixed overnight. And a lot of us use a great amount of our time and energy on thinking about the past. If you would like this to change, it will take a lot of time and effort and consistency. But what are you supposed to do in the meantime? Are you just supposed to live miserably until the problem is solved and your mental model reconstructed in a healthier way? Not necessarily. If you spend a lot of time thinking about the past, doing your absolute best in the present moment will always give you something nice to think about in a few days. And while you are hard at work ensuring that your mental model gets quote unquote fixed for the future, doing your absolute best at things that are meaningful will ensure that many of your moments thinking about the past will also be meaningful. Do you get what I mean? Doing meaningful things in the present moment gives meaning to thinking about the past. At least that is how I view this whole system and relationship between the past, present, and future you. Maybe I am ignorant to the variety of people and how their thinking works, but for me personally, applying this while I was observing and tweaking every little fault in my mental model served as a great asset in making me happier and prouder in my day-to-day life. More grateful about what I already had, and again, prouder about the person I was on my way to becoming. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you a fantastic day. That was not me stuttering. That was done on purpose. I promise. I do not stutter. Believe me, I don't stutter. That was on purpose. Okay, before I start yabbering too much, peace and love. Take care of yourself. See you in the next one.